Okay, here is the parts for step 7. At the hull, I've got the transmission cover, radio parts, steering column and steering wheel, and the gear selector. So at this point, I've already glued these two parts, cemented these two parts together. They went together fairly easily, no problems. The radio, it went together fine, but it was kind of, because of the molding, it was kind of dipped in where the seam is. So I applied some Tamiya gray putty. I'll get that sanded down once it cures. It fits there like that. The lid fits on there like that. The radio fits on the side, and the gear selector fits there. Steering column, steering wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue, cement, whatever, most of this stuff together, and then I am going to go ahead and give it a coat of primer, and I'm also going to give the inside of the hull, I'm going to prime the whole thing, and then I'm going to spray my red oxide colored primer, I believe, on the inside parts where it would be on the real vehicle, which includes these parts as well, some of these parts. So I'm going to get all that get this assembled, get everything primed, do the painting on these parts, do the detail painting on the radio cover, and just kind of get all that painted and ready for assembly. Okay, I've got the this sub-assembly done. Part of the floor plate, transmission, housing, steering, radio. Again, the only part I haven't put on is this, the gauges for the driver. I called it the radio panel earlier, but it's not a radio panel. That is the gauges. I'm going to do that separately so I can detail paint it, but this is ready to go. I've got the back part of the floor plate and the back bulkhead, I guess you'd call it. There was some ejector pin marks there that I put some Tamiya putty on. I'm going to sand those down here in a little bit. Then I will glue this together, and this is going to have to be a really good joint here, because this is going to create some of the structural rigidity on this hull, because this hull is kind of pinched in a little bit. You know, this should just drop in, but as you can see, it doesn't. So if I spread it and put it in, it bows this piece either down or up. So by cementing this on here and letting it cure really well, this vertical part here will add to the structural integrity and help keep this spread open. Same with this. The transmission works in there fine, but this part here doesn't. I've already test fit it once, and it'll be fine once I get it down in there. So that's coming up, and then I've got the engine. It's more of just like an engine top, because it's just made to be something that you see underneath those grills, the louvers on the engine deck. So it's just real simple. It's got this post, you glue it in there, and then it just sits just like that, and you know, just put something in there. So I need to do that, and then once I get that done, I will be moving on to the next steps, because what I want to do is I want to get the interior, well, once I get that stuff glued, once I get these parts finished, I get this glued together and finished, then I'm going to prime everything, and once I get it primed, I can assemble it, and then I can install the seats and the brake steering levers that go in front of the driver's seat right underneath the steering wheel. I can get that all assembled, and then that way the interior of the hull will be basically done, and I can move on to the exterior parts. So I'm going to assemble these parts once, you know, I get them cleaned up and sanded down and ready, and then I will prime all of them. Then I will put everything together, then I can move on. So that's just a quick little bit to show you what's going on and what's coming up next. Okay, so I have all of the front part put together except for the radio, which I need to detail paint. Then I'll put it in position in the hull. Inside of the hull, the back bulkhead and floor plate has been installed, and all of that has been painted gray. So the next part I need to work on is the front part of the hull, which has a few details on it. Once I get that part painted and then installed, then all I have to do is install the control levers and the seats once I get those painted, and I'll be painting the cream color on the inside of the sponsons here, and that will pretty much complete the inside of the hull, with the exception of weathering everything that's in there. So I'm going to get cracking on that. There's not really any kind of special notes on any of this stuff. It's all gone together pretty much like it's supposed to, and got some machine gun ammo bags to go back here, but everything's been pretty straightforward, so nothing really tricky to talk about. So I'm going to work on that stuff a little bit, get that installed, and see where we are from there. Okay, a quick note on the front part of the hull. On the inside of the front plate, where the driver's visor and stuff is, couple of things. Number one, there's some pretty gnarly push pin or ejector pin marks on the front. One of them's like right along this edge here, which is kind of weird, but these here I'm going to fix. These I don't think are going to be visible once it's attached to the upper hull plate. Thusly, I mean, even looking in the hatch, you'd be hard pressed to see them. I'll probably work on them a little bit, at least this part down here. The part on the top spot I'm not really going to be too concerned about, but there's one right in the middle of this vision block here, so that's going to be pretty dandy to fix. But it should be able to get that. So I'm going to get those cleaned up before I paint this, and so at least it'll look halfway decent, and then I can move on to the rest of the construction. Okay, so here's where I am now after all of the installation of all the parts. The interior of the hull is pretty much done. All I have to do is let these ammo bags finish drying, and they'll glue on this back bulkhead here, and then I'm pretty much done with the inside of the hull, and I can move on to the next step. But all of this stuff went together pretty nicely. No real fit issues. The hull, the back of the hull, when looking at it, whenever I installed the this bottom plate here, it was this plate was bowed up, which told me, and upon closer inspection, that these sides were kind of bowed in like this. So I don't know if it was designed that way to facilitate the top plate being removable and having a nice snug fit, or if it just warped over time. But if it did warp over time, it warped evenly on both sides, because you know, I kind of checked them with a 90-degree angle. Nothing real scientific, but the angles of both of these sides, looking at it from the back, were pretty much identical. So I don't know if it was engineered that way, because this whole top is supposed to be able to be removable so you can see the inside. But you know, you wouldn't want it to be loose, so it fits in there pretty snugly like that. So anyway, I don't know, but once I glued this part, the back bulkhead, when I glued that to this bottom plate, that took care of the bow here and spread this out, you know, where it should be. So that was the only thing that seemed kind of snug. And again, I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, or if it just, you know, if it just came out that way over time. I've got the radio, or not the radio, but the control panel. I got that detail painted. Look at it like that. Here, let's do it like this. You know, the relief on the gauges was such that it was fairly easy to paint. All of the little demarcation lines and this red portion of the dial right here, it was raised, so it was really kind of easy to paint. Got the ammo storage installed, got those painted. The front of the inner hull, vision block, the machine gun moves, which is kind of cool. You can pose it, I guess. The control arms, the secondary steering and brakes and so forth, in case the steering mechanism goes out. So it all went together really nice. I painted the seats a brown leather color and kind of highlighted those. Once I got everything painted, I gave it all a good wash using artist oils, and then did some chipping. And the chipping, it turned out kind of cool. I was kind of subtle with it. I didn't want it to be too mangled, but it was my first time using sponge method for the chipping, and it's kind of easy. It's a lot easier than trying to do it by brush. You don't have as much control, but in a case like this where there's a lot of stepping going around, I figured really random would be good. And then in addition to that, I highlighted the diamond plate. You may not be able to tell it very well on the video, but I highlighted the diamond plate with some silver dry brushing. Did a little bit of silver chipping as well as the black chipping around the bottom of the ring here. So I just kind of got the interior weathered up. I'm not putting any dust in there because I wouldn't think it would be that dusty. And besides, you're not going to be able to see inside of it that well except through the hatches and then whenever you remove the turret anyway. So that the interior is pretty much done. I do have to cement these side, the front part of the hull here. I need to cement it to the sides. I just need to put some tape on there and cement it really well. I just haven't done that yet, but the bottom part is cemented in place. So that's done. There's an engine in here, and all that is just to give you something looking through the grills, because it's just like a top. It's nothing to write home about, but it's just to give an illusion that something's in there. So that finishes all of the construction up to step 10. So I'm going to end this video with that, and the next video will pick up with step 11, which is the detail stuff on the front, and then the rear plate, and start working on the engine deck after that, starting at step 11. So that's the progress so far, and I'm having a really good time building this thing, and it, you know, nothing weird has gone on. It's all went together really well, and it's just been a fun kit so far. So stay tuned, and there'll be another episode soon of Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and we'll catch up on what's going on. See you guys later.